Airports are supposed to represent freedom, opportunity, and the chance to reach new destinations. But for Zara and Nia Jackson, twin black sisters, what should have been an ordinary journey became a defining moment in their lives. A moment that exposed not only the persistence of racism, but also the extraordinary power of courage. Family and truth. They were just 17 years old. Honors students with bright futures ahead of them. Zara dreamed of becoming an aerospace engineer. Nia was preparing for a career in international law. Both were hardworking, articulate, and proud of the sacrifices their parents had made to ensure they never felt limited by society's labels. But on that day, walking hand in hand into the bustling terminal of Horizon Airlines, they discovered that no amount of preparation could shield them from the subtle, and not so subtle, cruelty of prejudice. The Jackson twins had been excited for weeks about this trip. It wasn't just another flight. They were heading to Washington, D.C. to represent their school in a national debate competition. For months, they had stayed up late, studying case law, practicing rebuttals, and sharpening their minds. Their principal had called them the pride of their city. Carrying matching black backpacks and carefully pressed blazers, they stood in line with other passengers, their tickets clutched tightly. Zara's face lit up with nervous energy, while Nia, always the calmer twin, whispered reminders to breathe. But the moment they reached the check-in desk, the atmosphere shifted. The woman behind the counter glanced at their tickets, then at them, her expression tightening in a way the twins recognized all too well. Her lips pressed together, her voice suddenly sharp. "These seats are unavailable," she said flatly. Confused, Zara leaned forward. "There must be a mistake. These were confirmed weeks ago. The agent didn't even look at her properly." She tapped on her keyboard with exaggerated slowness, sighed, and muttered, "Seats reassigned." "Nothing I can do." Behind them, passengers shifted impatiently. The twins felt the sting of eyes on their backs, the weight of silence that often follows black girls when they dare to challenge unfairness. Denied boarding. The agent handed their tickets back with a dismissive wave. "Step aside, step aside." 2 words that carried a history of exclusion. 2 words that stung more than the denial itself. Other passengers, white passengers, with tickets purchased far later than theirs, were allowed to breeze through without question. Families smiled at attendants. Businessmen were greeted with deference. But Zara and Nia, standing in their blazers, holding valid tickets, were told they did not belong. "Is this because of us?" Nia whispered, her voice trembling. Zara's chest burned with anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. "No, it's because of them," she replied, nodding toward the desk. They tried again, asking for a supervisor, showing proof of purchase, explaining the importance of their trip. Each time they were stonewalled. A security officer was eventually summoned, towering over them with a hand resting on his belt, as if 2 teenage girls with backpacks posed a threat. "You need to move along," he ordered. The humiliation, what followed, was a gauntlet of humiliation. Their carry-on bags were pulled aside for random checks. Their hair was touched without consent under the guise of a search. They were asked to remove their blazers, then their shoes, then answer invasive questions about why they were traveling alone. Zara felt her throat tighten, tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Nia, usually composed, clenched her fists so tightly, her nails dug into her palms. Every moment was a reminder. You don't belong. You are suspect. You are less than. By the time they were escorted away from the gate area, the plane they had been scheduled to board was already taxiing down the runway. Their dream of making it to the debate competition was slipping away, but their humiliation was not complete. As they sat on an uncomfortable bench, security standing nearby, they overheard an attendant mutter under her breath, "Better safe than sorry." You never know with people like that, the phrase seared into their memories. People like that, the breaking point for hours they waited. No one offered an apology, no one tried to help. Passengers came and went, flights departed. And still the twins remained stranded, treated like an inconvenience rather than paying customers. Finally, Nia reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and whispered, "We have to tell Dad." Zara hesitated. Their father, David Jackson, was a man they respected deeply, a quiet giant in their lives. He had always taught them to lead with dignity, to believe in fairness, to fight with words and evidence, not with anger. But what most people at that airport did not know was that David Jackson was not just a father. He was also the chief executive officer of Horizon Airlines, the very company whose employees had just denied his daughters their rightful seats. Zara dialed the number with shaking fingers. When he answered, she could no longer hold back her tears. She told him everything: the denial, the searches, the humiliation, the whispers. For a long moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then came his steady voice: "Stay where you are. Do not leave the airport. I'm on my way." When the call ended, the twins looked at each other. They had unleashed something far bigger than themselves. Less than an hour later, David Jackson walked into the terminal, his tailored suit immaculate, his presence commanding attention. Employees who had once dismissed his daughters straightened nervously. Whispers rippled through the staff as they realized who he was. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His very presence was enough to send waves of unease across the terminal. "I want every detail," he demanded of the manager. "Every report, every recording, every name involved." The staff scrambled. Excuses poured forth. Misunderstanding, routine security, system glitch. But the truth was already written in the humiliation his daughters had endured, and in the cold expressions of those who had enforced it. What happened next sent shockwaves far beyond the walls of that airport. David Jackson made one phone call, not to his staff, but to the operations center. "Ground all Horizon flights until further notice," he ordered. The word spread like wildfire. Across the country, flights were delayed, passengers confused, schedules disrupted. But for the first time, the inconvenience was not falling on the shoulders of the powerless. It was borne by the company itself. Employees who had once looked down on Zara and Nia now stared at them in disbelief. These were not just two teenage girls. These were the daughters of the man who controlled the very planes they worked for. Beyond punishment. But David Jackson was not a man driven by vengeance. His goal was not to punish, but to transform. He demanded accountability, not just apologies, but systemic change. He ordered a full investigation into discriminatory practices. He required every employee, from desk agents to executives, to undergo intensive anti-bias training. He set up an independent board to review complaints of discrimination. Most importantly, he insisted that the voices of passengers, especially those historically silenced, be placed at the center of Horizon's policies. For Zara and Nia, the most powerful part of this reckoning was not watching their father exert his authority, but realizing how their courage to speak up had ignited a chain reaction. The power of truth. The days that followed, media outlets picked up the story. Headlines blazed: "CEO grounds flights after daughters face racism." Videos surfaced of passengers who had witnessed the discrimination, confirming every detail. The twins became symbols of resilience, not because they had powerful connections, but because they had dared to name what others tried to erase. And yet, the story was never just about them. It was about every black traveler who had been told to step aside, every family humiliated at checkpoints, every student who had been underestimated, overlooked, or silenced. Their story resonated because it revealed a universal truth. Systems change only when individuals refuse to be invisible. A new chapter weeks later. Zara and Nia finally stood on the stage at the national debate competition. They hadn't won first place, but that no longer mattered. They had found a different kind of victory. The victory of using their voices, of forcing accountability, of sparking transformation. Looking out at the audience, Nia whispered to her sister, "We didn't just debate policy, we lived it." Zara smiled, her eyes shining. "And we proved that courage runs in the family." Closing reflection. The story of Zara and Nia Jackson is more than just an incident at an airport. It is a mirror held up to society, showing us how racism operates in the smallest details and the largest systems. It is also a reminder that real change requires more than apologies. It requires courage, accountability, and the refusal to accept invisibility. For anyone who has ever been told to step aside, this story offers hope. For anyone who has ever witnessed injustice and stayed silent, it offers a challenge. And for those who hold power, it serves as a lesson. No title, no uniform. No policy is stronger than the truth when it is spoken with courage. Because sometimes, it takes the voices of two teenage girls and the love of a father to ground an entire fleet of planes and force a company and a society to confront the reality of its own prejudice. And that is a flight worth remembering.